like one of the things that you remember that you were, because mine was my wrestlers that I used to play with in the 90s, they were all gone. And yeah, what was your thing?
You see, I was kind of I was one of those kids that were groomed to be a doctor, you know?
Oh, okay.
So anything not science related would be gone, except my Legos. My Legos would stay around.
Okay,
But
that makes sense.
Not science related, because Lego it's good for the mind, right? You're being creative and logical at the same time. But I would have random, just fun things that I would have as a kid, and I'd go to summer camp and they'd be gone when I get home. But all my stuff, like the human anatomy and the microscopes and all that stuff were all still there, and
yeah, they multiplied. There'd be more of them somehow.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was one of those kids that, I graduated from. I remember I graduated from high school, and my gift was a brand new microscope, and I was just like, wow, thanks.
So you grew up? You grew up in Canada, Russell?
Yeah. I am born and raised in Canada. I'm fourth generation Canadian. So officially, my family first came here for the railroad.
Okay.
I have one of those those typical immigrant stories where, my grandmother owned a farm, which we worked on every summer.
Oh my God.
My father fought in the Second World War for the Canadians. That kind of typical immigrant history,
Yeah.
Dad was also Dad was the first Chinese guy to graduate from engineering at McGill.
Oh my God.
It was weird, random stuff, immigrant story.
What part of
stuff.
Canada? Like around Toronto? That part of Canada, or?
No, Vancouver. I think I have more than 385 direct relatives in Vancouver somewhere.
That's awesome. Vancouver was where so that was perfect for you. That was perfect for you. Is that why you didn't want to be a doctor? Because that's when, like, around like some of your early credits, like 87, 89, that's like when that boom took off in Vancouver, when it was like the Hollywood North.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't there, unfortunately.
Okay.
So my family was in Vancouver, but after the war, my father apparently had the choice when they were shipped back from Europe. He lied about his age, by the way, to like most kids did back then. By the time they found out his real age, he was in Europe, and apparently my grandmother got a note saying, "Look, we know his real age. By the time we ship him back, he'll be of age, so we're just going to keep him here." But when he was shipped back, he had the choice of getting off in Halifax, Montreal, or Vancouver. And it's weird immigration story. In the army, he could never be by himself because they were always worried he'd be mistaken for a Japanese person and be shot at. So he had these two really large white French Canadian guys who were his buddies, who with him in fact, they were his buddies even after the war. Like, they would come over to our house and hang out. And but they told him, "You got to come to Quebec. The hottest girls in Canada are in Quebec." So my father, being a young man, said, "Well, I'm getting off in Quebec.
I'll be going to Quebec too." Yeah.
That's how I ended up here in Quebec. My father wanted to, and what's funny is that after he passed away and after my mother passed away, my mother and my father were friends. They weren't seeing each other, but he was sending my mother letters with these pictures of all these white French Canadian girls he was dating at the time, one after another. And we're just like, "Oh my God, my dad was a playboy. What the heck?"
Oh my God. So primarily you grew up in Montreal? That was like your childhood?
I was born and raised in Montreal in a little tiny district called Pierrefonds, which translates in English to rock bottom. So it's kind of a... Yeah, I know. So I grew up there speaking French and English. And in fact, my first acting role wasn't in English. It was in French.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so I
You
first
speak it
started acting in
fluently?
French before
You
English.
speak it. You obviously speak it fluently. Like that is how common. Like if you go into a store, is it like either or it's like first French then like
Yeah, no,
English?
for me it's either or, but of course here in Quebec the official language is French. So
Yeah.
it's funny here in Quebec because you'll go into a store, you'll go into a place, or you'll go into any place and you'll meet somebody and you'll both be speaking French for the longest time until one of us goes, "Wait a second, are you English?" And you go, "Yeah." So and then you switch into English afterwards. But
That's
yeah,
funny.
everybody speaks French at first, and then if the person's English, you'll speak English to them.
Yeah. That's such a wild thing. So yeah,
Well,
obviously
it's
you're a
like
hockey fan, right? You're a hockey
um,
fan?
I I'm a bad Canadian.
Well, they're gonna throw you out.
I'm not a hockey. No, I'm a football fan. I'm a
Okay,
big football
CFL,
fan,
yeah.
and at CFL. So I do that. I do that weird thing where I'll fill up my PVR with first CFL stuff, and then college football from the States, and
Mhm.
then I'll watch all the NFL stuff in the States. So that's my PVR is jam packed with all that, you know, which is going to start very soon.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Like that you do that because a lot of the because that's like the feeder system, college football
Yeah,
to CFL,
yeah,
right? Do they play
yeah.
football in colleges in Canada?
They do, but it's not as big
Yeah.
as it is in the States. But it's getting bigger. But it's all population thing, right? Like
Hmm.
we can't fill up stadiums like you guys do because we just don't have that massive population.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think the population of Canada fits into the state of Florida.
I know that's one thing that people don't think about Canada. When you look at it, you're like, wow, this is vast. Even if you take away like the northern section, when like, okay, it's not really inhabitable, so there's not much there. But like even just the border of the United States, it's like the major cities are like major cities, like Vancouver, Toronto,
Yeah.
Montreal. Like there's major cities, but along the way, it's like very sparse, like desolate. There's areas that there are many people, but wow, that's awesome. So you mentioned earlier the doctor stuff growing up. So
Yep.
what got you into acting? Was it theater in school, watching a movie? How did that come about?
I was on my way to pre-med and I
Oh my
needed
god, you were there. You were
I
already
was
there.
almost there. I was almost there. I needed a stupid course. So we have in our system, we have between high school and university, we have a stopover. It's called CJEP. And
Oh, okay.
CJEP was developed. Um, it was developed right after the war, and it was It was really a place so that people after high school, if you want to go into the trades, you can get either 2 or 3 years of further education, and then you get the trade education. But instead of going to university, so we have that because our school system stops at grade 11,
Oh,
right?
okay.
That's why. So we have that little stopover, and that so you take more courses there to prepare you for university. And I was heading towards pre-med, and I said I need a stupid course, something that's a throwaway. And I took a drama course. And when I took that drama course, I was like, this is so it lit something inside of me I didn't know existed. But I should have known better because at that time, my brother was a song and dance man.
Oh,
And
really?
but he was doing that on the side though. He was trying to do the proper Asian thing. So he went to McGill in engineering, like my father. And I believe at the time, he was already working for IBM as the head of security for IBM here in Montreal.
Oh,
But
okay.
on the side, like on the weekends and the nights, he would be a song and dance man with different groups. So I should have had an inkling that was in my blood. But yeah, I took a
Yeah.
drama course and then I said, okay, what do I do? So I talked to the the university advisors, and they said, look, you're about to start, going into your courses in order to enter into pre-med. We'll give you 5 years. We'll hold all your credits for 5 years. And so try it out and see what happens. So I tried out in 5 different theater schools. And I said, if none of the 5 accept me, I know my destination is medicine. All 5 accepted me. So I was kind of screwed. Yeah. And so and then I just said, okay, I was going to go to a few of them, but then I realized I couldn't afford a lot of them because another thing that changed my life a lot is my father passed away when I was 11. So
wow.
I started financially supporting my mom at 13. So I needed to be able to work and go to school at the same time, So I picked the budget conscious school that would also allow me to get a good theater background, and that was Concordia University. So then I did 3 years at Concordia University, and it was hard because I believe there's 800 applications a year minimum. They pick 15 a year, and then out of the 15, 8 of us graduated, and then out of the 8 that graduated, only 2 of us work still.
Wow, isn't it? It's insane. Well, it's that hard of a business. It's that hard. Wow. So what was your? Did you have to do an audition, or how'd you get in? Okay, cool. Wow.
Well, another strange story. I had no idea. I've never performed in my life before. I've never acted. I just did that little drama course in CJEP, and they said, well, there's a really long audition process, and it actually lasts. There's a first audition, and then you have a whole weekend of auditions. So the first audition is just you go in with a monologue, and then they'll ask you to do some other stuff. I didn't know what a monologue was. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I made one up. I wrote one myself, a monologue about and they said, what would be like cool or interesting? And I didn't know a lot. So I made one about my dad's funeral, like, what I recall as a kid as my dad's funeral. And I passed the first audition with that. And then you had a weekend, a Saturday and Sunday, where you spent the Saturday, they spent the whole day putting you through exercises and stuff like that. And then they cut off a whole bunch of people. Then Sunday you come back and you do a whole day of other workshops and movement. And again, I'm a science guy. So there I am being a tree and asking me to do stuff I've never done in my life before. And then on Sunday night, they post up the list of who was accepted. And surprisingly, my name was on the list.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
So that's how I got, and then I studied, Shakespeare, Moliere, and all that stuff. And the big surprise for me was when I graduated theater school. Because you have to imagine this was, 37, 38 years ago. So, I wanted to quit theater school at one point because everybody in my class was telling me I was only there because they needed one visit by minority per year. But these are all people that came from theater backgrounds, right? They've already done theater school, and now this is like the ultimate program for them. And so you got the science geek coming in who obviously had no idea what the hell he was doing. So I think in second year, I wanted to quit. And God bless him, he's passed now. Joe Cazalet, he was one of those guys who was a chain smoker. And back in the day, you would go into his office and he'd be rolling one cigarette while smoking another one.
That's amazing.
And I went into his office and I said, look, Joe, I need to quit. I can't do this anymore. And he said, well, fine. If you want to quit. But I'm not signing your papers. And and this means in university, if he doesn't sign off on you, you lose all the money that you spent on the credits.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I'm just like, holy crap, I can't afford that. You know, I'm supporting my mom. I can't do that. So I said, okay, I'll tough it through. And God bless him, because he told me at the end, he said, the reason why I didn't let you go is because if you can make it through this theater program, you can make it through the industry. And he was right, because the hardest part of my whole career was getting through the theater program.
Yeah.
But after I graduated, the shock for me was there were no speaking roles for Asians. If you think about it, back in the day, right? There were absolutely no roles for Asians. Why is my email on still? 1 second. Do I turn this on? Oh, it's because I have your email open. There you go. And so after I graduated, I ended up having to do stunts and martial art films.
Really?
For about 8 to 10 years. Yeah. So
oh my God.
A lot of my first 8 years of my career was all like, thank God I knew martial arts. I did a lot of Shaolin Kung Fu. And so I was able to use that in order to stay in the industry. And then slowly, 10 years after graduation, they would need the token guy, the token Asian gangster to say, one stupid line with an accent, you think you're so tough, something like that, and then gradually the lines increased and my career got better, thank God. Because at this age, I could not do stunts anymore. No.
Oh yeah, no, I know. No, it's terrible. The whole, just the way all minorities. Like I talked to an actor, this guy Rico Ross. He was in Aliens. He was in like Death Wish 3, but he was in a bunch of stuff. And it's so funny. Like you look at his career, you would think just like yourself. You're like, oh man, they must be a stunt person, martial artist. Him, it's like, oh, he's just gonna be like, he's like a badass guy. He was like a Shakespeare trained guy. Like he trained in England, and he was like, man, I'm not gonna take these shitty roles. Like he's like, I'm not gonna take this. And then he got some roles, but it's like, it's terrible when you think of old movies. That's why I always laugh at people nowadays when they're like remaking movies and casting minorities in these roles that were in the original, white people. And I'm just like, do you understand when those movies were made? It was like they were only casting white people. Like even in roles that were written, people were like changing their face color and stuff. And it's like, it's fair now, more fair. It's never, eventually, hopefully it becomes fully an even playing field, but you still see that in some of it. But wow. So do you remember your first like role? So like some of the early, like you mentioned, you played like a thug in some early roles. Do you remember the first time being on a set? Because that must've been like a shock too. Again, just like the audition process for getting in Concordia, it was like, okay, here's something you had no idea. Monologue. Hey, there's this weekend thing. You're going to be a tree. You're going to do all these like weird, like who's that? Stadler, the one famous, acting coach that's in New York. Well, they were in New York, but it was like,
there's a couple actors. There's
Adler or Stadler.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It sounds like that. But I remember I talked to an actor. She was talking about all the people in her class, and they were all like big names. Like the hell's his name? He just passed away a few years ago.
Also, there's Rotenberg, and there's Rotenberg too. Anyways, there's a whole bunch. Yeah.
Yeah. But she was like, the one day for 2 hours we were fake sleeping and snoring and drooling, and it's like, if you're not ready for that, you think it's like, wow, this is like. Use your imagination. Like the more fun you can have and almost have like a childlike mind, no matter when you're acting. Whereas it is, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's a very silly thing while you're in it. But then afterwards, when you see that finished product, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I always, because now I give a lot of lectures for beginning actors.
That's
and I
awesome.
Also coach some actors for parts and for auditions. But a lot of times I just have to remind people that acting is just like when you were a kid in the backyard and you picked up a stick and suddenly it was a laser gun or a laser sword, and it didn't matter, right? And we as kids, believed it 100%, right? Because you remember the arguments you used to get is like, dude, I shot you. No, you didn't. You missed me. No, I shot you. Like, because that's what acting is. It's really being a big kid playing in the backyard, but being paid for it. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
And if you approach acting like that, because you have to have joy. It took me 20 years to understand that, my career really started taking off when I understood that I need to have fun on set. And when I understood that, that's when I started to really, okay, this is how it works. You were asking, remembering my first, I remember the first time I was on set. It was on a French TV series. And thank God I was playing a computer geek, because I could be as awkward and as uncomfortable as I wanted to be. And it fit the character completely. But because back then I was definitely the token, like the whole cast was white, and I was like the only one visible minority. And at one point, an interviewer in French calculated it out. So in the whole 2 seasons I did of this French TV series, I averaged 1 line an episode. And I was just like, what? He goes, yeah, you averaged 1 line per episode. I was like, wow. But that's where I learned a lot about this, because one of the advantages of going to Concordia was that, unlike a lot of other theater programs, they had an agreement with the film and TV program. So there was a film and TV production program that was going on in another building. So once a semester, we had a chance to work with them. And,
that's awesome.
They would give us
That's huge.
So the students would give us a small script, and we'd memorize the script, and we'd go over and work with them. So you got the chance to learn all the terminology, learn how to work with the cameras with students. So I made the majority of my huge mistakes at university before getting to set. But still, it was, like now there's actually, you can actually go and get film and TV terminologies for dummies book. It's available. And I wish it was available when I started, because there's so many things that they would say to you, like, okay, this is the window shot. Are we shooting in front of a window? No, we're not. So what are we doing? It's the last shot of the day. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So it was weird. Starting off.
But at least you had that experience. That's what's so cool. There's so many things that I love about Canada, and that's really neat. That I'm fascinated by. I have to do more research on the between university and high school. I think that's so cool, because that's such a weird time. Like, I didn't even go. I went to school for like a little bit at that point, but I had no idea. So I went right to working, doing sales. But that's such a weird time. At like 17 to 20, you're supposed to like choose what you're going to do for the rest of your life, which is like a lot of pressure for, that age, that mind to make. I know I didn't make it. I'm, like I said in my email, I'm an accountant now. I did sales for most of my life until 5 years ago. I went back to school, but that's cool. So that was on Scoop. Was that the series you were on as a?
Oh my God! You did look at my shits. Yes, it was on Scoop. Yes,
that's cool. No, because I was gonna say that's pretty early on, and I know credits never are 100% accurate. And they're like earlier ones of movies that I know, and it's so cool. Like, from interviewing a lot of people, there's so many movies that filmed in Canada there back then, because it made so much sense. Like, was Trudeau's dad in charge then, or no? Or was he was
in charge of what,
of Canada? Trudeau. His father was the 70s.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think Pierre. I think Pierre was I think he was back then. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because I'm just thinking about that was when that boom happened. But like Scanners 2, you play like convenience store thug. There's like so many movies that you wouldn't think like would shoot there. But now after doing this for so long, it's like, you know what? You shoot even in the States. It's like, oh, why are they shooting in Georgia? And they're pretending that it's Pennsylvania. It's like, Well, George is giving credits. They're giving money to
George is
shoot
giving
there.
tax credits. That's why we're going. Yeah,
exactly.
And
do you feel?
And a lot of times, sorry, go on.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, I'm just saying that a lot of times it is funny because it's so expensive nowadays to film in so many different places. I mean, that's why even Canadian productions will leave Canada and shoot somewhere else just because it's cheaper.
Yeah. No, it's like wherever you can stretch the dollar, and now it's like the mindset of some filmmaking is the mindset of like the Roger Corman of the quicker you can film it, the quicker you're able to obviously save money on it. One credit that I wrote down that you were in, I love this, and I don't even know if Roger Corman did this or it was like the Canadian Roger Corman, but The Lost World.
Oh my God, yeah.
So a movie that came out probably the same year as The Lost World, but they used the same name. That was like a very Roger Corman thing to do a play on the movie that was popular like the year or two before.
Yeah, except I think we had like 1/16 of the budget or something.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's the one where I played twins, actually.
That's pretty wild. How like doing something like that? Like that is
it was
that's fascinating. Like
it was fast. Yeah, it was fascinating. It literally was a wig and a little bit of makeup, and that was it. And it was weird because there were scenes where I was talking to my brother, and so we would record one side of it, and then, but technology wasn't like nowadays. If you play a twin, you'll record it, and they'll set up a monitor so that you can act to your own image. We didn't have that ability back then. So it literally was me doing part of the scene and then a tennis ball being set up on a stand and a poor script person trying to imitate the way I spoke and me reacting to a tennis ball. And that was, that was high tech back then.
I'm sure it was.
But yeah, it was... the special effects of that movie were horrible. Yeah.
That was like that weird time, like when it like obviously with the budget of that and like a lot of like indie movies, it was like Jurassic Park was like or like Terminator 2 is like the movies you look to as like the pinnacle of like that early CG, like the way they nailed it. There's so many movies that came out like right around that time that had big budgets. They just went with the wrong company because there were so many people that were saying, "Oh, I can do that," and they were like trying to do it, but they weren't.
Well,
so it was
that production was smart though because they didn't try to be that good. They knew they didn't have the budget for it, so they ended up making it that that little bit of a campy style, and like it was like I don't know if you remember what was it? The old black and white movie Aladdin, and this I think it had skeletons in it that were fighting as pirates and stuff.
Seven Voyages of Sinbad, one of the Sinbad movies.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you are a film fanatic. So it was that kind of style. Like it didn't. It looked bad enough that everybody accepted it. That's the style of the movie.
That's cool.
So. And what's weird is that when I travel sometimes, I actually see that movie. Like,
really?
I still see it being broadcasted. It's just weird.
You never know what's ever, like, when people make movies, they never know. Like, whenever you watch any of those behind-the-scene things, it's like, you'll see, like, the two actors or the actor and the director be like, do you think we'd be sitting here 30 years later? Or even when I talk to people, I'm like, can you believe you're being asked about this movie? It's like, honestly, when I was done with it, I'd never thought, because nobody thought of a future of having on demand or even like video stores, depending on the people I interview. But most of the time they were like, when I'm done, I was just like, all right, on to the next one, because there was not, people weren't paying. Like I have some VHS tapes that like we were talking about before we started recording, like one on there, it's like $30 is the price tag because nobody opened it. I'm like, do you imagine even nowadays spending $30? Like back in the day, if I was a kid, I'd be working like almost 20 hours to buy to buy a movie.
That's a lot of money back then, man.
I know.
Especially when you look at laser discs, they were really expensive. I mean,
they were super expensive, and the player was like ridiculous. Yeah,
and it was ridiculously huge too. I mean, I remember it was like the size of a suitcase or something. But yeah, I remember going over to a friend's house, and they had a laser disc, and I just couldn't get my mind around it. You know, like seeing it work. You know, it was like wow. But then again, I grew up in the age when. Sorry?
No, I was going to say it's funny because at the same time we had the technology of the CD. So it's almost like you're thinking like, oh my God, why does this have to be so much bigger? And then like, it was like not even that long later, they were like, oh yeah, we actually figured it out now. It was like not like probably 5 years after they went obsolete.
Yeah, that was a fast technology because people spent a fortune on that and it changed so fast.
Yeah, no, they got burnt. People that invested in those got burnt.
I think I still have my Walkman though. I still have my Walkman somewhere. My Discman. I still kept my Discman. Yeah.
The Discman, and it had on there like the what was it? God, it was like
technology or
it was like anti-skip, and it was like for some reason there was a button to turn that on. It's like why would you never not have that on for any reason? But so Russell, you were talking about like
because it used more battery power.
Oh, you know what? That's probably why. And then you have to carry extra got a world of batteries. Like my Game Boy, I used to always have like so many batteries with me for like road trips, and God, such good memories. Kids have it easy now. My daughter has a tablet that stays charged for almost like a day, so she can really just play on it.
I know,
all day long. It's not fair.
No, I remember saving up so much money to go to Radio Shack. I don't know if you guys. I don't think you ever had Radio Shack back there, but
yeah, we did.
It was like this.
Yeah, we had Radio Shack
Did you?
In the States? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So I would save. I remember saving up to get a recharger, like a battery recharger, at Radio Shack.
Yeah.
But I couldn't buy the batteries yet. You know, so I got the charger, and then I had to save up more money to get the batteries. You know, it was just like. And they sucked back then, by the way.
Those things? No, I know. Yeah, no. They didn't last as long as like buying like a Duracell or something. So what would you say was the big turning point? So you talked about obviously you were playing like typecast roles for a while, like the martial arts, playing like a thug, or when you were on the series and had like a line or two. What was like the one that you would say that you remember like as like that turning point? Either turning point as in personally that you're like, I can do this forever, or turning point that somebody saw something and you're like a casting director and that changed like the trajectory?
I have to say it's probably the red violin.
Okay.
And why? It was because, well, first of all, it was the first time I worked with Sandra Oh. So,
cool.
You know, I got to work with her a few more times afterwards. But it was the first time working with Sandra Oh. She just graduated from the National Theatre School, and she was like this big name here in Canada. You know, like everybody in Canada knew she will be a star. And I was working with a really well-known director, and it was Colm Feore was in it, and Samuel Jackson. So you know, it was the first film where I got to really act. And yes, I was playing an Asian guy, but I mean, I play Asian guys all the time because, you know, I'm Asian. But
yeah.
But it was really that turning point for me where I was the first time I was actually appreciated as an actor. You know, like they didn't tell me, they didn't come up to me and say, okay, you know, this time when Dolph Lundgren hits you, can you just throw yourself a bit more? No, it wasn't that. It was, you know, Russell, what do you think that this character would do? You know, like, do you think he's really sad about remembering the violin, or do you think it brings him happiness? And it was just, they're talking to me, not telling me what to do, you know? And that probably was the first time I felt, oh my God, this is what an actor is. this is really, really what I want to do. The red violin really gave me that push at the part of my career where I was doubting if I could do this, or if I could stay in it, or if I had it in me, you know?
Yeah, just people want to be involved. I've talked to like directors and, you know, and actors, and they love the ability to be a part of it, even if it's like a simple question is like you mentioned, like, hey, how do you think they should feel, or hey, do you want to try a line here, or even if it doesn't make the final cut, like for if you let people just like throw out like improvised lines on the set, like for the rest of that shoot, that actor is going to think like, hey, you know what, I was able to like give myself into the scene. But that's great, man, because that's perfect. That's like you said, around that 10-year time that you're in the business. And it's hard. It's a hard business to get into. And just for you to go through it all, just like your professor said, you know, if you can make it through here, you can make it through the industry. It's kind of like the same thing. You had that first 2 years, almost like 10 years of it. That was kind of difficult. But you had the drive, and you got that opportunity from there.
The second boost for me probably was when I did a film with Gene Hackman and David Mamet, and I was scared shitless because I grew up watching Gene Hackman.
Yeah,
you know, it's Gene freaking Hackman. You know.
Yeah,
and I remember. I mean, I was a young kid, and Gene Hackman saw that I was nervous, and he, came over and talked to me, and he was telling me stories about when he first started acting. He said, you got to make yourself noticeable, Russ. And I go, what do you mean? And he said, well, the first job I got, I was an extra in a Western. And he says, but I wanted to be on that set longer. So he says, at one point, they just wanted me to take my hat off and dust off my jeans. And he said, but I made a meal out of it. I took off my hat. I dusted off my whole body. He said it was impossible for them not to use me again as an extra because I was like that big puff of dirt and cloud. He said, you saw me. He said, he said, that's how I started. He said, I started that way. I became an extra, and they had to keep using me as an extra, and they threw me a couple of lines. So he got me relaxed. And then the real boost came when we were doing a scene together, and David Mamet comes up to Gene Hackman and says, what do you think of the scene, Gene? And he says, it's not working for me. And I thought, oh, that's it. I'm being fired from the set. It's obviously not, it's because of me. It's not working because of me. And David Mamet goes, no, he says, I didn't write the scene properly at all. He goes, again, he's looking at Gene Hackman, and he goes, let's go to my trailer while they finish the setup, and we'll rewrite the scene. And I'm thinking they're going to write me out. They're just going to write out my character. It's not necessary. Yeah. I mean, the scene's not working because of me. They're going to write me out. So I'm prepared to hear, okay, Russ, you're now an extra or something in the background, And as they're walking away, David Mamet turns back to me and he goes, what the fuck are you waiting for? Come to my trailer. We got to rewrite the scene. And I was just like, oh my God, So as a young kid, I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. Yeah, I'll play. So there we are in a trailer, Gene Hackman, myself, and David Mamet improving this scene, trying to figure out how to get the scene to work better. And then finally we get it. He scribbles down a few things. The script person is there. She's taking notes, and they go, okay, well, that's great. Russ, are you happy with the scene? Well, yeah, I'm happy with the scene. Yeah, that's good. And we go back, and we're doing the scene, and I didn't realize that, Gene Hackman is a big boxer, right? He loved boxing a lot. And I didn't realize he trained the day before. And in the scene, at the very end of the scene, we have a fight, and he punches me, and I go down on the ground, and that's how he gets past. I'm a security guy, and that's how he gets past me. But I didn't realize, and he didn't realize either, that he hurt himself the day before boxing. So when he hit me, we both heard the distinctive celery stick break.
Ah.
And I went down in the pile. It looked great on camera, but he cracked my 2 ribs.
Oh, he cracked your ribs? Oh, my God.
He cracked my ribs, Gene Hackman, because his hand was like twice the size of mine. You know, like he had boxer hands. And so there I was. And then I ended up in the hospital afterwards. And then Gene finished his day of shooting. And the next thing I know, David Mamet and Gene Hackman are in my hospital room checking up on me to make sure I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, I really want to do this job.
Yeah,
was another.
This makes it all worth it. That is like, that's awesome. Like to have that experience, and it's like so great for like a person like Gene Hackman, like even yourself now, like coaching and helping people that are up and coming. That like you were, you know, maybe somebody didn't extend that olive branch early on, but like just to think about that, like like Gene Hackman, they're just like everyone else. And it's so cool that he felt that he sensed from you like the nerves and that's great.
And I try to do that now. I always try to give actors what I wish I got like starting off in the industry. A lot of times I'll be on set and there'll be this brand new actor who's nervous as hell. They got to walk in, say one line, walk out, and they're nervous as hell. And but I'm the guy who will go and talk to them and say, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just, forget all the cameras. Just talk to me. Forget. Nobody else exists. Walk in and talk to me. And I'm also the guy that gets in trouble a lot by production because I make it a point to talk to all the extras, all the background.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of productions don't like you doing that. But in my head, if it wasn't for the background doing their job properly, then you have no production. You end up with a film like, what was that the Tom Cruise one where he goes into New York and it's completely empty? Magnolia? Was it?
Oh, Magnolia. Yeah, Magnolia has a scene like that. And also the Will Smith movie is like purposely like that, like in I Am Legend.
Oh, yeah.
Or
even
that
one too.
After COVID, the first movie that I like filmed right after COVID was that one with Denzel and I forget the name of it, but it's so weird because there's no background and they're in places that are public places. So they're like a coffee shop and there's like one worker, but like nobody walking around the street. It's like bizarre. So background's important.
So that's why I'm making
really
a point. And if they're not doing their job, like if somebody looks straight at the camera, then you'll have to redo that shot again.
Yeah.
So they're I make it a point to I bend a lot of rules on set now.
Bend the rules, yeah. Like you said, you want people to, just like Gene Hackman made you feel, you want people to feel welcome and feel like appreciated and they're gonna keep doing it. If you're somebody's good background, good, guy at coffee stand, those are people that are key for movies. People don't think about that.
It makes everybody's performance better too, right?
Yeah.
And if everybody's performance is better, then my performance is better. So, maybe selfishly, I'm just helping myself.
Yeah, selfishly, yeah. And then, like, I know you mentioned early on, like, one of your first roles was like doing like voice, like a French, but you have a lot of voice credits too. So how did that come about? Like doing cartoons.
Well,
and video games too.
Geez. Yeah, a lot of video games. I've been lucky with the voice world. Again, well, I have to tell you a funny story about my first voice job ever.
Yeah.
Before I even finished, just after I finished theater school, and before I became a union member, I was looking for. I've never done any voice work, so I was, looking for a non-union voice job that I could practice on, or at least try, like to be in a studio and back in the day we had newspapers. So I was looking at like classified ads in the newspaper and there was actually voice job for non-union actor. And you had to be able to speak French and English. And I'm like, oh my God, I'll do that. And there was an audition, but all you had to do was phone a number and leave a voice sample on the number in both French and English. So I called the number, left it. I left my home number because, again, we didn't have cell phones back then. And I got a call back, and they said, "Yeah, you got the job. Come to this address on this day, and you'll do some voice dubbing." I'm like, "Oh my God, my first voice dubbing job, you know?" And so I go to this place in Old Montreal, and I get to the address, and it doesn't look like a studio. It looks like a basement. So I said, non-union, I totally get it. Maybe it's just, okay. I walk in, and of course, the door has a curtain right in front of it. I said, oh, it's different. I guess maybe for the sound. I don't know. I walk in, and it smells like cigarette smoke. Again, you were able to smoke inside back then. And I get there, and the director is there, and he's like, "Oh, great, great, great." He goes, "Have you done voice work before?" And I said, "No, this is my first time. I hope you don't mind." He goes, "No, your voice is great on the recording. It was fine." He says, "We have a really experienced actor. She'll walk you through it." I said, "Great." And then I walk into the studio, which wasn't a studio per se. It was like just the living room part of this place with a curtain. And there was one big TV, one really bad microphone, and a really old grizzled lady with a cigarette. And she talked like this. And she goes, "Sweetheart, I'm so glad you're here. It's good to have fresh voices." I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." She goes, "Bienvenue, bienvenue." And she goes, "Sit down, je suis toi là, puis on va commencer. We'll give to start, I said, "Okay." I said, "What are we doing?" She goes, "Don't worry about it." She goes, "You just, whatever you see on the TV, just try to voice it over in English." I said, "Okay." She goes, "It's a French movie. We're doing the English version. Just try your best to match it." And the director says, "It doesn't matter if you're not perfect. It doesn't matter for us." I said, "Okay." The movie starts. It's a porn. It's a porn film. And I'm dubbing French porn into English porn. And I'm just like, holy crap. And that was my first voice job. I spent the whole afternoon in this horrible studio with a smoking woman doing, and just like, and they're doing stupid lines like, "Hey, you ordered a pizza?" And that was like that kind of stuff. That was my first voice job.
I love the fact that where it was recorded was probably where they would film a movie like that, in a basement.
Yeah,
with a curtain. Just like, it's a way to start, And you can only go up from there.
I felt there was nothing lower than that, So, yeah. And I was just glad I was a non-union job. That's all I could say.
Yeah.
But how did they?
No, I was just looking at some of the shows that you did. It was like Ripley's Believe It or Not, The Country Mouse and the City Mouse.
Yeah,
like a lot of credits on those.
Yeah, a lot of it had to do with, again, being a kid. As a kid, I would do a lot of different voices just to amuse myself. And so when you get an agent, agents, there are some agents that are just general agents. Well, they'll do film, TV, and voice. Other agents only do film. Other agents only do voice. I had a general agent, and she would get me these auditions to do animation work. And I literally would just, back in the day, you would just go into a studio on the audition day. They would give you some lines to read, and you would give your take on those lines. They would give you a piece of paper with like a sketch of the character, a description of who he's like, and then you try your best. And that's how I got into the voice business. And of course, then once you start doing animation, you get known in the animation world doing certain voices, and then as soon as you start doing, games for Ubisoft and other video game people, they know that, oh, Russell really does those voices, these type of voices really well. And, I just kept getting hired over and over again.
Yeah, Far Cry. I played those games. It's pretty like the one I'm fascinated about is like Ripley's Believe It or Not. What were some of the voices you did on there? Like one of the main voiceover voices, or
yeah, I believe I was one of the main voiceover narrators for Ripley's Believe It or Not, if I remember properly.
Yeah,
yeah,
I can sort of hear it in your voice.
Yeah, well, I've actually, I actually do. They'll often give me like a George Takei reference for sci-fi narration, So a lot of times I'll be singing, they'll be doing something, and they're like, "Can you do like a George Takei thing?" I'm like, "You mean you want something like this? Way back when, Stardate 24/16/32." Yeah. It's you just again, it just goes back to when you're a kid. Right?
Yeah, you're just being silly.
I would do all sorts of voices, and of course, back in the day when things started getting PC, if there was an Asian accent, well, then you got to hire an Asian guy to do the voices, and I was one of the few Asian voice actors back then. So they would hire me to do all the different voices for Asian characters.
Yeah, that's good for
like
you.
I did Journey to the West, I think, and I was like, that was a huge whole bunch of series, and one of my first big animation jobs was Journey to the West, and all I did was the narrator, and again, it was another voice that I played with when I was a kid. Yeah. It was a long road and we had to travel many days, but finally we found the destination. It's kids' voices that you do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh man, Russell, it's so much fun. Here's one thing I have to mention before we're done is because it became such a huge movie, and I don't know, like when you're filming a movie, I don't know if people. It's like whenever you're working on a movie, you're working and then it's done. You never know what the reception's going to be. But like Thanksgiving, that movie, I don't know. Obviously, it has Eli Roth attached, so you have obviously like his history. It's like a lot of people. John Carpenter made a movie tomorrow. People are going to go see it because it has his name attached. Yeah. But like that movie, like blew up and has a phenomenal cast.
Yeah, I mean, like it really blew up. Almost as that's the difference. The Three Body Problem has a huge viewership because it's on Netflix, but Thanksgiving has this cultish following.
Mm-hmm.
And your question is, do you know when you're doing it, is it going to be a success? Is that it?
Yeah.
At certain points in a movie, you get a feeling whether or not it's going to be good or not. There's been many movies where I've been on where I turned, myself and another actor, we turn to each other and we go, "Holy crap, this is shit," But on Thanksgiving, I spent a lot of time with my friend Jeff. Jeff, who's also he does what's his name? Oh my God, Sam. I can't remember. He's like the voice of oh my God, Sam. Anyways, Jeff is going to kill me for this. But we turned to each other at one point because we're buddy cops, right?
Oh, I see.
And
yeah.
By
Jeff
the way,
Tara Vanen? Probably butchering his last
name. He does Sam Fisher's voice. Sam Fisher in all the video games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's the Sam Fisher. And by the way, you have to see the Blu-ray version of Thanksgiving because all the buddy cop scenes were unfortunately taken out because of time in the movie release. But in the Blu-ray release, all the buddy cop stuff is there.
Oh, cool.
At one point, Jeff and I turned to each other and we went, "Holy crap, this is good." Not just because of the actors that were in it, but just you have a sense that the cast is gelling together. The story is making sense. The everybody starts really throwing themselves into the movie. There's something happening on set. I know it's a weird word to use, but it's almost like this magical moment that everything clicks into place and you go, oh, this is going to be good. And that happened on Thanksgiving. Jeff and I were sitting in a tent in a warehouse and we were cold as heck. And we turned to each other and we went, it's really cold. And we both went, but it's totally worth it. This movie is cool, you know? And by the way, the character that I play is based on a real life person.
Really? Somebody that like Eli Roth, the writer, knew?
The author of the film has a friend who's a real detective in real life, and they based my character off of him.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
No, when that movie, like when I first saw the first trailer for that, I'm like, I think it's so cool. Well, it's smart to do a movie about a holiday because that's what people, when a holiday comes up, it's like, oh, it's Christmas, I gotta watch Silent Night, Deadly Night, or like as like the horror genre fans. So it's pretty neat that there's a Thanksgiving, and I did hear that there might be another one.
It was greenlit. The script is being made. Yeah, whether or not I'm in it, I don't know. I mean, I did. Being a visited by minority in a horror film is like usually wearing the red shirt in Star Trek. You're usually dead. But when I first read the script, I was like looking for the moment that Detective Chu dies.
Yeah,
right. Because he's a visited by minority. He must be burned or stabbed. And I'm like, oh my God, he lives he's in the last scene. He's alive. So, whether or not I'm in it, I don't know. But yeah, there will be a Thanksgiving too. Definitely, it's been greenlit and the script's being made already.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Now, Russ, here's my favorite question to ask people because I always think it's so interesting. It's like this silly, not a silly thing, but it's like a meme that I saw online. And it's like one of the truest things that even though like people use memes and they use them as like information sources sometimes, and it's obviously bullshit and it's not real, like the stuff that's on there. But this one would hit home so hard. Like you never know that last moment that you're going to like play hide and go seek with your friends or play like pick up basketball. Like there's never like that. So you never know sometimes to enjoy that moment. And I always like to ask this question to people in film and TV because it's like, you don't know sometimes it's like not appreciating that first moment. So early on, did you keep any mementos from set? Like, did you have the wherewithal to be like, let me keep the script, or did you keep, oh, that's awesome. I love that. That is so cool.
Yeah. I wanted that. And I asked, I said, hey guys, can I? And they go, if you take it, we see nothing. And they let me take it home. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I've taken a few mementos from a few films. I actually have one of my favorite mementos that I took from a film. I did a film with Chow Yun-fat called Bulletproof Monk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he gave me the coat he wears in the entire film. He gave it to me, and he said, at the end, because we were helping each other out in the film a lot, and at the end he goes, I got one like this already. He took it, signed it, and he said, take this with you. And that's one of my prized possessions.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, because Chow Yun-fat. I mean, I grew up watching the guy, right? So
yeah, that's so cool. No, yeah. I always ask that question because it's like, some people will be like, I've had answers of like, yeah, I keep all the scripts, but you know what's over there? A closet full of scripts. Like this guy, Stuart Penkin. He goes, Doug, I have a closet full of scripts. Maybe one day I'll make one of my kids have to deal with it. Or another actor, he was in a lot of Carpenter movies. So Carpenter gives like really cool gifts at the end, like really cool like leather jackets and stuff. And he's like, they're really cool, but I'm not gonna wear like my jacket out to like the store. He goes, they're cool to have.
Yeah, well, there's like, I mean, I have a whole bunch of that stuff. I have jackets from the 3-Body Problem.
Oh, that's cool.
I got a whole bunch of memorabilia. Some of it, I will never. But I do. I'm like a lot of other actors. I do have a storage room full of scripts.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of them have writing in them from directors. They have writing like notes that other actors wrote down. So I kept a lot of that stuff, like
that's cool.
And now we're in, we're in PDF world. So I have my tablet now that we use on set. But again, all my notes are in there. The notes of other actors are in there, and I keep all the PDFs too.
No script, man. That's like it ticks me off that they don't have tickets anymore. Like when you go to like a sporting event, like go to a Yankee game and not having like a physical ticket to like save. Cause I used to love saving my tickets and putting them like an old box. But even with scripts, the scripts have fallen to that now too.
Yeah, but I'm old school. So sometimes I'll print out the script.
Oh, that is awesome.
I'll print out the script, even though it's not like everybody else is walking around with a pad. I'm still old school, so I'll print out the script.
Yeah.
That's a French TV series I did.
That's cool. No, it's like having the physical thing in your hand makes it feel like real. Even though I know the tickets work when I go into to a Knicks game, I just having that physical ticket like makes me feel like it's like this weird thing. Even like printing stuff out to read, like textbooks nowadays. When I went back to school, they're all online. It's like a weird thing to stare at a screen. So it's like I'd print out like hundreds of pages. I'd be like, I know I'm killing trees, but like in the same set, it just feels like it's easier to learn the other way. Like just jotting notes. Like I know it's easy to write on a tablet or on a computer, but it's just not the same.
I have to admit though, when I'm in if I'm number 1, 2, 3, or 4 on a call sheet, and I'm in a feature film, I'm sorry, but I'm printing that sucker out.
Yeah,
because it just feels much more more solid to me. If I'm doing a small role, I won't print it out. I'll keep it on the tablet. But I really love printing out stuff because it just feels much more tangible to me. Maybe it's because I started off that way. Like back in my day, there were no tablets or anything. So maybe it's because of that. But I work with a lot of younger kids now who just use their phone. Like I can't, and they're like on set looking at their phone at their lines, and I'm like, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
Well, not only that, my eyesight, I can't read the phone because my eyesight's so bad. But besides that, I'm just like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like acting, but that's just me.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Russ, this has been so much fun. This will be out, and I'll make sure to send you an email when this comes out. But this has been so much fun. Are you going to be a lot? So I know you're a huge fan of like the CFL, and you said you watch like college football. Are you going to be locked into like the draft tonight? Are you like, so you watch NFL too?
Yeah, I do. I don't like looking at the drafts, honestly, because it's often just so long.
Oh, I know.
It's
just
a
joke. Yeah.
It becomes like, for me, it's kind of like remember how the Oscars were a few years ago? Like you start watching it at 8:00, at 1:30 in the morning, maybe it's over.
I know.
It's just like, it's like, no, condensed. Like they're getting it now. This year they got it right. Like, let's go. So yeah, for me, the draft is kind of like that. It's just,
they milk it. Now it's like first round Thursday, second and third Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's just for more, revenue dollars from advertising. They try to stretch it out as much as they can. But to me, it's like, you never know who's going to hit. It's like such a crapshoot. You take the kids that are the best from high school that make it to college, and you have the best kids from college, and hopefully they make it in the pros. I'm a Giants fan. So who do you root for? Do you have like a specific team?
Yeah, a lot of people hate me for it. I love Kansas City, man.
Oh, cool. No, okay. I think you're gonna say Dallas. No, Kansas City's cool, man.
No. I mean, I just, you know what it is for me? It's the way Mahomes plays.
Oh, yeah.
He's that, there's the old style of playing, and then there's the new style of playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love the way Mahomes plays because, he'll be looking and you think he's going to pass. He's going to pass. Oh no, he's running, And it's
yeah.
I like the unknown, the new style of play that he brings. So for me, I've always loved Kansas City, watching them play. I mean, before it was the Patriots.
Before it was the Patriots? Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
But with the thing about Mahomes, and I totally agree, it's definitely a new school thing, but he has this old school mentality of like the Elway, Jim Kelly, like the gunslingers. Even though the league is so pass happy, I feel like those other guys, there's a lot of quarterbacks that it's like hike 1-2, throw a slant, throw a play, but like Mahomes stretches out the plays so much, and
he'll dance around for ages, and then suddenly you realize, oh my God, there's a receiver in the end zone, and nobody's covering him. I've been watching him since college, right? Like since he was in the and when he got into NFL, I was just like, oh, I got to watch this guy. But I love that. I do love the gunslingers. I mean, I was a big Tom Brady fan for the longest time.
Oh yeah, dude.
I thought he was beautiful throwing. Like, I just love watching him throw. The dynamics, the way the mechanics of him throwing was just like, oh, it's beautiful. But I
Giants took him down twice. Twice. That's my only
that is
saving grace. Even though he still has, he has like 8, I think.
Oh, I remember he showed one time.
Yeah, I feel like
his fingers were covered with Super Bowl rings.
It's got to be It's got to be at least 7 because it's insane how good he was. But that's awesome, man. Russ, this has been so much fun. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Like I said in the email, I love more of the origin story, and I think that's so fascinating that it was like a throwaway class. Do you remember the actor Robert Hayes? He was in Airplane.
Yeah.
So his story is not exactly the same, but his dad was in the military. So his dad was in the Navy. That was like the joke of it. And they were like stationed in Kansas, I think. And then in the middle of the semester, or just before his semester was about to start, he had to move. So then he was going to school in California, and it was like the last day. So he had to fill his classes. And what was left? Acting. And then he just fell in love with it. Yeah.
And that's how his was.
Oh, wow. That's it. Yeah. And I think it's so funny. Like, I've talked to a lot of people. It happens like like a happy accident. Like Brian Thompson, who plays like a villain badass in like Cobra and a bunch of other movies. His was a girl was flirting with the guy that was in the play. And he was like, wow, why the hell is she flirting with him and not me? I'm going to go out for the play. And he became an actor from that. So I think that's what's so cool about acting, because like you said, you don't know you have it in you. It's like other things you have to sort of have it in you to be a doctor, to be an engineer. There's like things you have to know. You can't like just wake up, not be good at school or not be good at math and be like, oh, I'm going to do these things. But with acting, it's just something that you're sort of like born with, and then you just have to tap into, but you never know until you like have that opportunity like you had or so many other people. So I think it's so fascinating.
And it's all about opportunities too, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of great actors out there who just never get the opportunity. And it takes a lot of drive, but it also takes some good luck.
Oh yeah, it's luck and then nailing that opportunity. Like Stephen Colbert said it best, because he was the backup to Carell at Second City in Chicago. So he already.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So the way. Yeah, so he was his understudy, but he always said, I forgot who told him. It wasn't Carell that told him, but some other older actor said, hey, if you can just stick it out, like you're going to get your chance, because so many people are going to come through here. Eventually, somebody's going to tab you for a sitcom or a pilot or a comedy series or something, but then you have to nail that opportunity. So he was like, so I just stuck it out. And then if I would have bombed on that opportunity, you wouldn't see me afterwards. So it's fascinating that you're right. It's definitely luck. but you have to nail that opportunity. Like everyone,
you do.
There's so many people that talk about nepotism, and I know there's nepotism in Hollywood. There's so many people that were thrown in our face, either nepotism or like Cindy Crawford as an actress. She starred in one movie, it bombed, and everybody was like, "Yeah, we're not going to use it anymore." So like, there's those things. Like, there's all these factors, but you got to nail your chances.
Yeah, and the chance only comes around once.
Yeah.
So you have to be 110% ready when that chance does come. See, 110% there. I'm talking like a sports guy. We gave our 110%, man. But
you can't do that. Where's that extra 10%? I forgot. Is that like a Seinfeld bit? I feel like that's a Seinfeld bit. But
I think it's a Seinfeld bit. Yeah, I think it must be. Yeah. But thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
This is fun, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your story.
No problem. Anytime. Take care.
Thanks, Russ.